An office worker, Sasaki, gains the ability to travel to another world. His first thought, to become a trader in that world. Selling Earth's goods for gold coins in this other world is exhilarating. Sasaki lives in a cheap apartment and is just an average office worker who occasionally helps his juniors at work. His salary isn't much, and after a busy day, his greatest joy is watching cute animals. Due to his age, he's cautious about showing this interest publicly, though his juniors greatly respect him. A high school girl lives next door to Sasaki's rented place. She seems to be locked out for some reason and greets Sasaki when she sees him. Sasaki thought his life would continue to be mundane, but he couldn't resist the allure of pets. At a pet store, he finds that the puppies and kittens he loves are too expensive for him to afford. While hesitating, he hears a voice pleading, "Choose me! Choose me!" Following the voice, he finds a fluffy small bird that can talk. It's much cheaper, over 10 times less expensive. Unable to resist, Sasaki takes it home, prepares food and water, and is about to name it when the bird declares, "My name is Bir Carlo, the sage of the stars from another world." Unfazed by decades of corporate life, Sasaki calmly nicknames it P-chan, and isn't surprised that it can talk. After all, the pet store owner mentioned some birds could communicate. When asked what it wants to eat, P-chan requests Kobe beef. Sasaki honestly replies he can't afford it, and P-chan suggests they go make money. P-chan shares with Sasaki a profound truth learned in another world. No matter where you are or how you live, you must enjoy life fully. Feeling a connection, P-chan proposes a partnership. They form a pact, transferring some of its power to Sasaki. Though skeptical, Sasaki decides to see what happens next. Is this what stability feels like for an office worker? P-chan climbs onto Sasaki's shoulder, indicating the pact's success and that Sasaki can now use its powers. Soon, P-chan transports Sasaki to a border city in a kingdom of another world. Initially shocked, Sasaki quickly accepts this new reality. Days later, a junior colleague at work notices that Sasaki has been arriving early consistently, even when train accidents cause delays. They have a private conversation. The junior feels the company has no future and plans to start a business, inviting Sasaki to join as a promising talent. Sasaki asks for time to think. The junior is willing to wait, understanding the uncertainty of a newcomer starting a business. However, Sasaki reveals he has a pet, making it impossible for him to join the venture. This is no lie. Since signing a pact with P-chan, Sasaki can now shuttle between worlds and use P-chan's teleportation magic to skip the morning rush and teleport to work. He uses his spare time to make money by traveling between Earth and the other world. To make big money, he knows he must deal with nobles, which is challenging. So, he starts by purchasing items common on Earth but valuable in the other world. During shopping, he wins some chocolate. Carrying his purchases, Sasaki sees Kurohige, a high school girl who has been kicked out, looking hungry at his door. He gives her the chocolate he won. Back in his room, Sasaki and P-chan travel to the other world and trade with a local merchant named Mark, earning 400 gold coins, roughly equivalent to 400 million yen, and keeping their supply source a secret. This starts their ongoing business dealings. Sasaki also learns magic from P-chan, recording the spells on his computer. He thought life would calm down, but during lunch break, his curiosity about magic leads to accidentally triggering the company's fire alarm with a flame spell, startling him. P-chan comments on Sasaki's natural talent for magic. They enjoy the other world's cuisine, though it's not exceptionally good. Exiting the restaurant, they see a chef named Frankie being fired. Learning that Frankie was ousted by jealous colleagues despite his rapid progress, Sasaki, needing a chef for a new restaurant venture, hires him. They buy building materials from Mark and open a restaurant on Gold Street. Frankie is stunned by his first month's salary. Unbeknownst to P-chan, Sasaki opened the restaurant for it, allowing P-chan easy access and ensuring the best ingredients. Another reason was financial pressure from buying too many goods and the desire to save on meals, especially since Sasaki hadn't had a raise in 5 years. Later, P-chan continues to help Sasaki practice magic in the other world, mastering various types but still unable to perform spatial translocation magic alone. Afterwards, Sasaki went shopping in modern society again, purchasing supplies considering that nobles in the other world enjoy hunting. He bought compact binoculars and multifunctional Swiss Army knives. These novel items immediately impressed Mark. Soon after, Sasaki met Thane, a noble from a border city. Thane, having high standards for goods, doubted such quality items were common among the commoners. Although Sasaki claimed to be from another continent, Thane suspected him of being a noble. Knowing he couldn't maintain the pretense, Sasaki adopted the identity of a craftsman, stating some items were from another continent and some made locally. This eased Thane's suspicions, leading him to make Sasaki an exclusive supplier for his merchants' guild, willing to pay a high price for his goods, and granting him the freedom to enter and exit his estate. Life in the other world had stabilized. Back on Earth, Sasaki attended a farewell party for a junior colleague who continued to invite him to start a business together. Noting Sasaki's recent vigor due to sleeping on a large bed in the other world, which made returning to reality feel odd. After a night of heavy drinking, they overlooked news of a nearby murderer. Leaving the pub alone, Sasaki was suddenly attacked by ice spikes. Turning around, he saw a man's arm transform into a large blade, swinging at a woman below. Unable to ignore the situation, Sasaki instinctively used ice magic to injure the assailant, before realizing he couldn't undo the ice. Unexpectedly, the woman, previously overpowered by the murderer, melted the ice spike and pulled a gun on Sasaki, questioning his origins and whether he was registered as a superhuman. Confused, Sasaki, unaware of what a superhuman was, explained that he had just recently gained the ability to use ice spikes. The armed woman then took him away. Sasaki thought these people might also know magic, possibly from the other world like P-chan, and felt a discussion was possible. Hearing the woman plan to take him away, he asked to return home first. She even arranged for him to bring spare clothes and sorted out his work for the next day. P-chan informed Sasaki that superpowers and magic are different systems and expressed curiosity about what superpowers are. Deciding to go with Sasaki, he packed up and upon leaving, saw his neighbor Kurohige waiting to talk. However, with pressing matters at hand, Sasaki politely declined, promising to communicate upon his return. The woman Sasaki saved earlier is named Hoshizaki. She thanked Sasaki for his intervention and explained superpowers to him during the ride. Superpowers emerge in about 1 in 100,000 people, and once manifested, they cannot be changed. No one has been known to possess 2 different superpowers. However, they can be strengthened through training. Hoshizaki can control water and alter its temperature. Both dangerous and weak superpowers exist, and criminals often target ordinary people after awakening their abilities. Hoshizaki works for a government-controlled secret organization of superhumans. She brought Sasaki to an impressive building, stating he would now work there with the opportunity to earn substantial bonuses for each mission. Hoshizaki asked about Sasaki's specific abilities. Sasaki found the idea of high bonuses appealing but felt frontline combat was too risky. He planned to downplay his power, claiming he could only produce ice spikes. However, Hoshizaki was excited, noting that Sasaki could create something from nothing, which complemented her abilities well. Since she could manipulate water but not create it, Sasaki's ice, a form of water, made him like an ammunition magazine for her. Being quite fond of money, Hoshizaki was thrilled at the prospect of teaming up with Sasaki to earn big. Sasaki was taken to a hotel, aware it might have surveillance cameras. He still had tasks in the other world, so he and P-chan quickly used a walk as a pretext to covertly teleport from a convenience store bathroom to the other world. Fortunately, time flows differently between the 2 worlds. A few hours there equated to just minutes here. Sasaki handled his business swiftly in the other world, including funding and payroll for his restaurant, before rushing back to Earth. The next morning at 6 a.m., Hoshizaki knocked on his door with a new assignment. Sasaki intended to bluff his way through with his work experience, but Hoshizaki didn't give him the chance, simply stating he would understand once he went. At that moment, Hoshizaki's boss, Chief Akutsu, who is also Sasaki's supervisor, approached. He informed Sasaki of upcoming training and declined Hoshizaki's assignment on Sasaki's behalf. Akutsu handed Sasaki a cell phone to keep in constant contact, with instant notifications for urgent tasks. Sasaki was annoyed by the constant availability, knowing it meant no rest on his days off. He even considered disposing of the phone in the other world to escape GPS tracking and signals. After seeing a message, Akutsu left. Sasaki then followed the rules, completed a test, and had his photograph taken for identification. During training, Sasaki signed numerous confidentiality agreements. Their public identity is that of police officers, but their actual work is classified. The training instructor, upon hearing that Sasaki might team up with Hoshizaki, couldn't help but show sympathy. Although Sasaki was very nervous, he quickly succumbed when the training surprisingly included a payment of 1 million yen. When Sasaki returned home, he encountered his neighbor Kurohige, who had made cookies for Sasaki to thank him for the chocolates he had given earlier. Sasaki was very grateful. At that moment, Kurohige's gaze became particularly menacing as he asked if Hoshizaki was Sasaki's girlfriend. Sasaki clarified that Hoshizaki was his boss, causing Kurohige to leave blushing. Back at home, Sasaki put down the potentially monitored phone and went for a walk with Pichan, who had been learning to mimic bird calls. Indeed, his house had been fitted with surveillance and listening devices, which Sasaki removed upon his return. Soon after, he received a call from Akutsu. Sasaki expressed his dislike of being monitored and warned that he would not cooperate with any work if it continued. Akutsu explained that this was standard practice and praised Sasaki for his candidness, noting that many in the organization were dissatisfied, and it was important to test members' counter-surveillance skills. Under Pichan's guidance, Sasaki had learned intermediate magic and even created a mobile version of a magical grimoire, a record of magic that qualifies as a grimoire in any form. Pichan remarked on the innovation of modern people. Sasaki brought remote pagers to trade with Mark, referring to the batteries as fuel, and sold them at a high price. However, to Sasaki's surprise, Mark bought all the pagers because Thane had ordered that everything Sasaki sold be purchased, given the recent tensions with neighboring countries. Sasaki realized this might lead to conflict. After leaving Mark's place, Sasaki went to the restaurant, paid Frankie his monthly salary, and introduced a new menu. Thanks to the menu and Frankie's skills, the restaurant was extremely popular, always packed. But Sasaki and Pichan got to enjoy Frankie's cooking first. After a satisfying visit to the other world, Sasaki was woken up by an urgent call from Hoshizaki. He rushed to the scene and met other superhumans who were mocking Hoshizaki. According to Akutsu, their mission was to arrest all members of an unregistered superhuman organization. The state typically records superhumans for management purposes, but these superhumans had refused registration and were harming others with their powers, leading to their arrest. Sasaki was unexpectedly suited up in armor and went on a mission with Hoshizaki. Although Hoshizaki said Sasaki didn't need to be on the front line, delivering supplies there could still attract unwanted attention. The minor characters commented that their adversaries were of a lower level and posed no concern. Despite Hoshizaki urging them to stay alert, they paid little heed. Hoshizaki reassured Sasaki that although the risk was high, so was the reward. Sasaki wondered, would injuries count as work-related? Under Akutsu's command, the superhumans stormed an abandoned building, but the enemy organization seemed to have fled. Hoshizaki felt an ominous premonition and decided to leave with Sasaki. Then, they heard over the headset that a group of superhumans was under attack and had lost contact with headquarters. The superhumans at the scene were also attacked. Sasaki noticed that the attacker was using whim powers. The other superhumans panicked, realizing that a strong adversary had infiltrated their ranks. They scrambled as abandoned bowling balls were hurled at them. Hoshizaki immediately moved to block the attacks and had Sasaki throw an ice block to create a water shield. However, she had to throw her shield to save a civilian superhuman. Hoshizaki then urged Sasaki to flee, knowing he did not want to be on the front line. But Sasaki couldn't just abandon his teammates, especially as it would leave Hoshizaki in danger. Besides, deserting in the face of the enemy is a serious crime for a civil servant. At that moment, the boss controlling the superpowers appeared, and Hoshizaki was lifted into the air by a levitation power. She unscrewed a water bottle she carried and attacked a kimono-clad young woman with the water stream, but was easily knocked out. The kimono-clad woman also sensed Sasaki's presence. With no other choice, Sasaki stepped forward, exuding the aura of a veteran employee. He intended to negotiate, but the kimono-clad woman realized he was new as he didn't recognize her. Sasaki admitted he was new and tried to gather information about the enemy's numbers. The woman didn't fall for it, forcing Sasaki to act. She was surprised when Sasaki summoned lightning and revealed 2 hidden superhumans. The kimono-clad woman demanded to know who Sasaki really was. Sasaki shrugged, claiming he was just a newbie. Finally, Sasaki suggested that they release the hostages. "Don't spread the word about what happened here. I won't attack them again. Just say they fought to a draw." Unexpectedly, the kimono-clad girl remembered Sasaki and planned to recruit him to her organization. However, Sasaki declined, stating he preferred staying at the large company. Before she left, Sasaki asked her to release his boss's people. He then announced that the opposing organization had underestimated them and left after a fight. Akutsu found Sasaki suspicious, but didn't ask anything in the end. Sasaki then visited Hoshizaki, who had woken up. To show her gratitude, she treated him to a meal. It was during this meal that Sasaki discovered Hoshizaki was underage. She was only 16 and still attending school, dressed maturely because she feared being seen as unreliable due to her age. Is it even legal for Sasaki, an adult, to recruit minors? Sounds problematic, he thought. Just after finishing the dinner, on his way home, Sasaki encountered a magical girl rummaging through a trash can. Having earned a substantial amount due to his superhuman abilities, Sasaki bought Kobe beef for Pichan and enjoyed a feast. He planned to practice recovery and barrier magic in another world and enjoy the soft, large beds at the inn. However, upon arriving in the other world, Thane informed him of an impending war. The enemy's power was twice that of the kingdom, and Thane had to be on the front lines. Thane was there to ask if Sasaki could help by providing supplies from the rear, as other merchants were unable to do so. With food prices rising, the town's economy would collapse before the war even started. But if Sasaki helped, the kingdom would provide high rewards and boost his reputation. Thane was responsible for logistics behind the front lines. Ignoring the national command could threaten his family. Curious, Sasaki asked why Thane didn't just abandon the kingdom. Thane explained that the kingdom was indeed decayed. Years ago, it was a magical technological power, but some greedy nobles exploited many magicians, causing them to leave. Fortunately, a star sage remained, stabilizing the kingdom with his advanced magic and talent. Yet, a few years ago, the current king and those greedy nobles assassinated the sage out of jealousy, leading to the kingdom's decline. Thane believed this was the result of the nobles' complacency, but couldn't abandon his homeland. Sasaki apologized and agreed to take on the task, making a verbal agreement before leaving. No sooner had Sasaki left than a count came to visit. Pichan is the Star Sage. He believes the kingdom is likely to be defeated, but the conflict could be resolved with the magic of a Star Sage if it's just between small countries. Pichan admires Sasaki for his dedication to protecting the land and offers his help. Sasaki returns to the restaurant and finds Frankie being harassed by a former chef demanding the restaurant's recipes at a low price. Remembering Sasaki's kindness, Frankie refuses. Sasaki warns him to report any further trouble directly to him. Sasaki then uses Pichan's teleportation to travel to a large city to purchase grain. Thanks to his previous negotiation experience with a trading company, Sasaki remains calm when dealing with the Chamber of Commerce and openly states the grain is for war supplies. Since the chamber is far from the front lines and unaware of Sasaki's transportation methods, they agree to supply the grain for profit. Days later, Thane is shocked to find extra grain in the warehouse and realizes Sasaki can use spatial transfer magic, just like a Star Sage. Sasaki takes responsibility to protect his beloved pet parrot Pichan from being targeted and instructs Thane to keep this a secret. The nickname Star Sage is bluntly given due to the extensive use of magic, but Pichan seems to enjoy the nickname. Upon parting, Thane reflects on wishing she had Sasaki's courage and determination, which might have saved the sage years ago. A month later, Sasaki hears from Mark that Thane has died in battle, complicating his emotions. Back on Earth, Sasaki is informed by his boss, Akutsu, that he's been promoted and will now be a government-employed police officer. His partner is Hoshizaki, and their task is to persuade unregistered superhumans to join the government, a task fraught with danger. At home, Sasaki sees his neighbor Kurohige, who has received many gifts from him and offers to give him a massage as thanks. Sasaki politely declines and feeds Kurohige some bread before returning to his room. There, he notices Pichan watching the news and feeling down. It turns out Pichan had met Thane, one of the nobler nobles of the kingdom, and is saddened by her death in battle. Pichan admits feeling sad is inevitable. After Sasaki returned to the other world, Frankie mentioned that the chefs no longer dared to cause trouble. However, due to Thane's death on the battlefield, many residents had left the territory. At this time, Thane's butler approached and took Sasaki to meet Thane's daughter, Elsa. After Thane's death, his sons had been fighting over the inheritance. Elsa knew her eldest brother was foolish and feared the family would be doomed if he took over. The butler explained that the internal power struggle was severe and he was worried about Elsa's safety, so he hoped Sasaki's trading company could protect her. Mark agreed to arrange a house for Elsa and wanted to buy walkie-talkies and small telescopes from Sasaki, who felt something was off about the butler but agreed to prepare the goods. Indeed, Sasaki's suspicions were correct. The butler was no good. He had been inciting Thane's sons to fight secretly, planning to let the supporting nobles clash and control Elsa by marrying her off to a hidden partner, thereby benefiting from the chaos. However, Sasaki was unaware of this and was dining with Elsa, who was very interested in Peachan. With their permission, she picked him up but accidentally touched his eye, causing Peachan to cry out. Elsa was shocked to hear the bird speak. At that moment, Mark came to inform them that the butler had found 2 bloodied weapons behind a hill, obviously belonging to Elsa's brothers, but there were no bodies, only bloodstains nearby. The butler wanted Elsa to inherit the Thane family soon, claiming she was the only one with the right to inherit. If she didn't take over, the family might fall apart. He reassured her that they would handle the family affairs before finding a suitable husband. As Sasaki and Mark left, they saw many residents fleeing, which saddened Mark, who had grown up in the area. The first thing Elsa would have to do after inheriting Thane's position was to persuade residents to give up their ancestral land, which would surely be hard for her. Sasaki didn't leave with Mark, but discussed with Peachan and decided to change the battlefield to at least save their territory. Since Peachan didn't know where the enemy was, they didn't use teleportation magic, but flew there at night. Sasaki decided to add flight magic to his learning list. They arrived at the enemy camp, and Peachan, asking Sasaki not to feel burdened, swiftly flattened the camp. Sasaki found this unsettling. After the camp was dealt with, they were about to leave when a red light burst from the ruins, shattering Sasaki's shield and separating him from Peachan. Sasaki landed safely using water magic and looked up to see Peachan fighting the red light, which was a powerful white-haired demon girl. The battle in the sky was fierce. Sasaki spotted 2 figures emerging from the forest. One of them was Thane, who was rumored to have died. He was accompanied by a white-haired young man. Surprised to find Sasaki, a craftsman merchant, in such a place, the young man was initially suspicious. However, Thane vouched for Sasaki's integrity, convincing the young man, who turned out to be Adonis, the kingdom's second prince. Thane had been protecting Adonis, and they had gotten separated from their troops on the battlefield, leading to rumors of their deaths. Their current goal was to head to a nearby village, and Sasaki agreed to escort them. Along the way, Sasaki thwarted an ambush by assassins. Thane was impressed by Sasaki's powerful magic. The trio reached the village to find it under monster attack. Though killing was stressful, Sasaki dealt more decisively with the monster species. They fought together, but couldn't finish off the low-level beasts. Thane suspected higher-level monsters were behind this, and just then, an orc charged them. Without Sasaki's timely defense and healing, they would have been in danger. However, they were no match for the orc, as Sasaki was still new to magic. At that moment, Peachan returned from battling demons, summoning a golem that flung the orc away. Thane was stunned at the sight of the golem. Meanwhile, Peachan educated Sasaki about magic while fighting. As the situation stabilized, Thane asked Peachan if he was the Sage of the Stars, recognizing the golem magic and speech. Not only Thane, but also Adonis recognized Peachan, both holding great respect for the sage from the past. This respect was why Peachan helped them. Sasaki revealed that Peachan had resolved recent food supply issues and destroyed the enemy camp. Grateful, the 2 princes listened as Peachan declared that the former sage was no more, and he would now live leisurely as Sasaki's pet. Sasaki asked the princes to keep the sage's identity a secret, which they promised. Peachan then teleported them back to their territory. Elsa, seeing her father return, burst into tears. Mark was puzzled by the events. Sasaki explained that he had just encountered them, and it seemed that the enemy forces had been wiped out overnight. The butler was shocked to hear this, and even more so to see Thane's sons unharmed. Thane had suspected a traitor at home, and had staged their death as a ploy to expose the mole. Elsa, relieved to see her brothers safe, cried out loud. The traitor turned out to be the former count, and the butler was arrested. Sasaki remarked on the complexity of nobility in this other world. Elsa then thanked Sasaki. High school girl Kurohige had been secretly observing Sasaki and was worried when he hadn't returned home for 3 days. On her way home from school, she found a female corpse in an alley and immediately called the police. After giving her statement, she overheard policemen discussing that Hoshizaki and Sasaki must take action. They mentioned that Sasaki was targeted by Hoshizaki for his ability to create water sources. Aren't abilities supposed to be confidential? Discussing this in public could let it slip. After Sasaki returned from another world, he realized that the flow of time had changed again, and it was now a workday. Following his rescue of Prince Adonis, Sasaki was invited to the capital and knighted, tasked with managing Adonis's private assets. Meanwhile, Thane was promoted from Viscount to Earl. Sasaki was puzzled by the sudden time discrepancy. At that moment, Hoshizaki knocked on his door with news of a new job, recruiting a high school student with fire abilities in the neighboring county. This student had not yet revealed his powers at school, making Hoshizaki the right person for the job given his control over water. Sasaki felt they should not underestimate the newcomer. Hoshizaki assured him that Akutsu provided a final safeguard. They could use guns if necessary. Posing as school inspectors, Sasaki and Hoshizaki soon identified the target. They followed him and discovered he had been suffering from prolonged bullying at school, having his money stolen. Hoshizaki was furious and wanted to intervene, but Sasaki stopped him, suggesting they find a way to approach the student privately to maintain his dignity. Hoshizaki agreed and asked Sasaki to write a report at a restaurant while he approached the student. He assured Sasaki that he would contact him if there were any issues. Sasaki agreed, reflecting on his life's rapid changes while writing the report and drinking coffee. When he finished, he planned to buy groceries, but saw the high school student with a girl. Curious if she was the boy's girlfriend, Sasaki spotted them and realized he recognized the girl, feeling it inappropriate to follow them around. Just then, the bullies returned, trying to take the girl away. The boy, in a moment of desperation, unleashed flames that accidentally hit an airplane's wing. Sasaki rushed out to create a barrier to catch the debris, concerned about the passengers on the plane. Using his powers, the boy faints. The other delinquents are stunned. Sasaki approaches and discovers the girl is actually Hoshizaki in disguise. Hoshizaki asks Sasaki to create some ice. He then manipulates the water temperature to knock out the delinquents. He jokingly asks Sasaki if he is a magical girl. Sasaki thinks Hoshizaki might be delirious. Hoshizaki also doubts this, since magical girls are typically young females and Sasaki has only heard of them in cartoons. Hoshizaki informs Sasaki that magical girls are real, with only 7 worldwide, possessing unique magical abilities, different from other powers. One such magical girl in Japan is hunting those with special abilities. Hoshizaki is unsure if the barrier is Sasaki's doing and suspects other ability users nearby. To their surprise, the magical girl, Agnes, arrives at the scene. Sasaki recognizes her from an earlier encounter. Agnes asks if Sasaki is an ability user. He lies, saying he is just a police officer who came due to the disturbance, and mentions seeing Agnes near a supermarket scavenging for leftover food. Sasaki wanted to talk privately with Agnes, but unexpectedly, Shizuka, a girl in a kimono he had seen before, appears. Agnes attacks her immediately, believing Shizuka to be an ability user. Hoshizaki is also suspicious of Shizuka. Shizuka then knocks out Hoshizaki and proposes an alliance with Sasaki. Realizing Agnes is serious, and considering the nearby delinquents and high school students, Sasaki decides to team up with Shizuka to drive Agnes away, hoping Shizuka will spare her life. During the confrontation, Sasaki uses magic, and Agnes concludes he must be an ability user. Sasaki claims he is a magic uncle. Agnes asks if he too was threatened by a fairy. Sasaki is confused and asks where her fairy is. Agnes reveals she killed hers, hating the role of a magical girl. Sasaki changes the subject, asking why Agnes doesn't need to chant for her magic, mentioning he needs to chant for his. Agnes doesn't know why. She then questions why Sasaki is with other ability users. Sasaki says it's just coincidence. Agnes remarks she wouldn't mind killing them then. Sasaki asks why she hates ability users so much. Agnes reveals they killed her family and her best friend. Seeing a child caught in the crossfire, Agnes pauses and decides to leave the area. Sasaki moved the unconscious Hoshizaki to a hotel and asked Shizuka what she wanted. Shizuka expressed her desire to switch sides because she was interested in Sasaki's abilities. He could shoot ice spears, use lightning, and even defend against magical girl attacks. He also hid his true strength from his superiors. Shizuka promised to keep Sasaki's powers secret if he helped her make contact. Sasaki received a call from Akutsu, who asked why the cargo plane had crashed. Sasaki cleverly rearranged his words, blaming the crash on the fight with the magical girl, and hinted at Shizuka wanting to defect. After the call, Sasaki warned Shizuka that if she defected, surveillance and wiretapping equipment would likely be installed at her home or residence. He should not have told her, but he did because she knew about his uniqueness, and he feared she might expose him. Hoshizaki, who had just woken up, overheard this and couldn't believe the agency would do such a thing. She immediately insisted on going back to confront them. Before leaving, Sasaki planned to buy some plum jam. Hoshizaki, learning he wanted to use it for pickling meat, shared her homemade pickled plums, claiming they were the most authentic. Hoshizaki was speechless and informed Sasaki that Shizuka's abilities were extremely dangerous. She was a Class A ability user who could absorb energy from anyone she touched, had amazing healing abilities, and was said to be over 100 years old. Looking at the pickled plums in his hand, Sasaki felt they were also aged like old plums. Back at the agency, the high school students had been taken into custody. Hoshizaki confronted Akutsu about installing wiretaps and surveillance cameras, accusing it of being sexual harassment. Akutsu reassured her, claiming he was gay. Hoshizaki then looked at Sasaki suspiciously since he was the one who revealed the surveillance. Akutsu assured them both, clarifying that Sasaki was not his type and he had no intention of office romance. But the surveillance indeed helped identify some spies. Reluctantly, Hoshizaki applied to have the surveillance and wiretapping removed, and Akutsu agreed readily. He even enjoyed some of Shizuka's plum pickles, obviously finding them exceptional. Hoshizaki learned about Shizuka's upcoming interview and was frustrated with Sasaki. Carrying the plum pickles, Sasaki encountered Shizuka on his way home. She insisted on staying at his house and even revealed a monitor, claiming there was a bird at Sasaki's house that talked to itself. As Sasaki was about to deal with it, Shizuka warned him that he was too careless. People in the area hated magical girls, and there might be a fairy near Sasaki. She advised him to be more cautious. Shizuka wanted to ally with Sasaki because her previous organization was targeting her. She said her biggest asset was money and proposed a deal with Sasaki. He needed to import goods to another world and his living expenses were tight. With Shizuka's financial support, he could at least have a good meal in the real world. He didn't immediately take her in, but discussed it with Pichan the next day. Initially concerned for safety, Pichan agreed when promised a monthly meal of expensive Wagyu beef. During negotiations, Pichan didn't ask for cash. He knew Shizuka had a lot of money and probably owned several companies. Pichan believed they lacked a legitimate source of funds, so he asked Shizuka for contacts for trading. Shizuka guessed they wanted to bring items from another world. Sasaki mentioned they were precious metals from the fairy world. Although Shizuka found it risky, her curiosity about the unknown led her to agree to the deal. Later, through Sasaki's computer, Shizuka had a video interview with Akutsu. Akutsu knew Shizuka was formerly a leader of a rival group and couldn't trust her outright. However, her exceptional abilities led him to consider hiring her as a consultant. Shizuka agreed but needed a public identity, so Akutsu assigned Sasaki to take care of her and gave him management authority, similar to Hoshizaki's level. He told them to contact him directly with any issues. Despite his recent promotion and salary increase, Sasaki didn't feel happy. After talking with Sasaki, Shizuka realized that although he was a corporate drone, he was kind-hearted and willing to listen, which was likely why Akutsu favored him. As they were chatting, Hoshizaki arrived and asked to speak with Sasaki alone. Sasaki inquired if she could control the blood inside a human body. Hoshizaki said she could use extracted blood, but not control it internally. Sasaki began contemplating how to counterbalance Shizuka. Meanwhile, Hoshizaki thanked him for covering up the plane incident, which could have led to her dismissal. She made plum egg rolls for Sasaki, but Shizuka tasted them first, teasing Hoshizaki and causing her to blush. P-chan loves watching TV dramas. While it watched, Sasaki took photos of the cute bird. Meanwhile, the king of another world realized something was wrong. Since he allowed the greedy nobles to target the sage, the kingdom had been declining. To revive the nation, he decided all royal heirs should work in government. After 5 years, the most outstanding individual would inherit the throne unconditionally. Mark made a fortune by being the first to hear the ceasefire news and might become the new store manager of the trade guild. However, he was nearly hit by a carriage from a count's family. Elsewhere, Sasaki checked the cargo and noticed P-chan watching outside. He was about to look for Mark, but was called to meet with Thane first. Thane discussed recent royal reforms and warned of the turmoil they caused. He reminded Sasaki to be cautious, as any heir showing merit could inherit the throne unconditionally. P-chan found this sudden and suspected something unusual might have happened around the king. Previously, nobles favored either the first or second prince, but this news would intensify their struggles. Thane wanted to send Sasaki to the neighboring republic, fearing Sasaki might get into danger. Sasaki, moved by such concern from a boss, exchanged a glance with P-chan, but decided to stay in the town. They prioritized selling the rare goods they brought to Thane. At that time, a subordinate approached Mark while Elsa eavesdropped outside. She heard the subordinate say that Mark was framed for colliding with a count and was arrested. It turned out Mark was actually the assistant manager of the trade guild. He made a fortune thanks to a tip from Sasaki and his business acumen. The manager, envious and fearing for his position, conspired with a count who disliked Thane. Knowing Mark and Thane were on good terms, they quickly planned to frame Mark. Sasaki criticized these nobles for their intense disputes over such small territories. Having done significant business with Mark, he felt obliged to visit him in jail. Thane handed Sasaki a dagger, which, along with Thane's name, should prevent others from troubling him. The count who arrested Mark was aligned with the first prince, complicating the factional struggles. P-chan suggested using magic, but Sasaki shook his head, preferring to resolve the situation politically. Mark was surprised and touched when Sasaki visited him and used healing magic. The guard leading the way was very cautious. Sasaki requested to meet the count, arguing that Mark's capabilities far exceeded those of the manager. The guard doubted that a merchant under the second prince would serve the count, but agreed to relay the message. Hearing Sasaki's words, Mark knew Sasaki was trying to help him escape and was moved to tears. Then, Sasaki traveled to another kingdom where he had previously traded grain. He wanted to establish a trading platform there and presented his goods. The local guild was tempted by the rare items. Although it was not easy due to pressures in that country, Sasaki offered to let them pay in installments, which led to the creation of a new guild named after Mark. Sasaki also looked for goods that could modernize trade in that area, starting with gold, which is rarer on Earth. They had to remelt and purify the gold they brought. Sasaki admired P-chan's knowledge. Meanwhile, Elsa informed Frankie about Mark's arrest. Both had been looked after by Mark and wanted to help. Given the count's high status, Elsa met with Sasaki alone while P-chan was briefly away, allowing them to talk. Learning of Elsa's concerns for Mark, Sasaki admired her kindness. Suddenly, P-chan teleported back, revealing its ability to speak, which Sasaki could no longer hide from Elsa. Sasaki then joked about P-chan's magical abilities. Bad people often target us. Currently, only Thane is aware of this matter. We hope Elsa can help keep it secret to prevent P-chan from encountering danger. Upon hearing this, Elsa immediately agreed to keep it secret and apologized for previously hurting it. Sasaki had just seen Elsa off and pack the gold when Frankie came looking for him. Thus, he did not get the chance to nail the box shut, giving Elsa, who was hiding, an opportunity. Originally, Sasaki was taking these items to trade with Shizuka. Unbeknownst to him, Elsa was hiding inside and got transported too. Shizuka was shocked upon seeing this. Elsa's disappearance also caught Thane's attention. When Shizuka saw Elsa, she couldn't believe a human could survive in the fairy world. Unfortunately, Sasaki could not find an excuse to deceive her, especially since Shizuka had no intention of leaving and wanted to overhear their conversation. Luckily, Peachan informed Sasaki that the languages of the two worlds are different. Sasaki could understand the language of the other world because Peachan had cast a spell on him. Thus, Sasaki confidently communicated with Elsa, who surprisingly thought Sasaki was the mastermind behind everything. After all, Mark was captured the day Sasaki visited. While claiming to help Mark, Sasaki was secretly moving gold bars, leading to suspicions that he might have betrayed Mark and surrendered to the Count. Sasaki, realizing he did seem suspicious, explained himself, stating his trade with Shizuka was to earn money to fund Mark's rescue. However, Elsa's presence could jeopardize the plan at any moment. Feeling guilty, Elsa listened as Sasaki promised never to betray Thane and Mark. Elsa believed Sasaki, but at that moment, Shizuka suddenly attacked, only to be restrained by Peachan, who had been observing in secret and cursed her. Should Shizuka harbor ill will or attack them, the curse would spread throughout her body, turning her into a non-functional mass of flesh, rendering her healing abilities useless. Shizuka, undeterred, launched an attack and felt the curse intensify on her arm. She had intended to use Elsa as a hostage to compel Sasaki to serve her, but the tables turned on her. Now she could only retreat. Sasaki had planned to send Elsa home, but Elsa, curious about Sasaki's true nature as Thane's daughter, was likely to influence the relationship between Sasaki and Thane. Thus, Sasaki decided to take Elsa on a tour of the modern world. Seeing modern technology and street scenes, Elsa was stunned and puzzled. Sasaki, who lives in such a developed country, wondered why he would go to such a place. He explained that he was simply seeking a stable life, constantly mediating between two worlds. This cruise was funded by Miss Shizuka. Sasaki facilitated the relationship between Shizuka and Elsa through translation. Elsa also experienced the world's cuisine, enjoying herself until an unexpected live-stream interview caught her off guard, thrusting a microphone into her face. Realizing the danger, Sasaki quickly blocked the broadcast and managed to send the crew away. However, a child then fell into water during the live broadcast. Elsa instinctively used magic to save the child, which was broadcast live. Sasaki and Shizuka exchanged looks. People with supernatural abilities were supposed to be secret. Without a word, Shizuka teleported behind, knocked out 3 broadcasters, and destroyed the camera. Sasaki grabbed Elsa and ran. At that moment, Shizuka was cursed, sharing their plight. They intended to quickly leave the park but were soon confronted by agents from the supernatural department and brought before Akutsu. Elsa was narrowly presented as a friend of Shizuka, claimed to be a supernatural from a minority group overseas, barely escaping Akutsu's scrutiny. Shizuka's abilities were undeniable, making a confrontation undesirable. Akutsu then offered Shizuka a job to assassinate a former colleague, with Sasaki to assist. Surprised, Sasaki wondered why he was involved in Shizuka's initial assessment. Meanwhile, Elsa, having encountered modern technology, expressed a desire to learn and bring this knowledge back to benefit her country. However, Sasaki said it was impossible as modern individuals have unique IDs, and Elsa, being from another world, would be undocumented and at risk of police detention. Concerned about her own world's vulnerability to this world's weaponry, Elsa was silent but still hoped for a chance. Sasaki reassured her that her world was not as fragile as she feared. They had magic for defense and could even unleash ghosts, potentially overpowering Earth, though nuclear weapons level the playing field. Later, as Elsa reminisced about her father while talking with Peachan, she realized he must be angry. Peachan comforted her, noting they would help explain since they too were responsible due to unchecked cargo transfers. Peachan and Elsa then watched TV together. Shizuka told Sasaki that the goods they brought were sold, and the profits converted. Sasaki had Shizuka prepare some goods to evade Akutsu's scrutiny, hoping the transaction could redeem Mark. Planning to return with Elsa and with Shizuka watching, Sasaki reluctantly shouted a magic slogan. Sasaki handed the dagger Thane gave him to Frankie, also asking him to bring some food for Mark, who was suffering terribly. Sasaki brought Elsa back, and Thane was relieved rather than angry, given the presence of a sage and no unexpected incidents. However, the manager who was jealous of Mark came over at this time. Since Mark was his subordinate, the manager felt entitled to act on his behalf, stating there was no need for Thane and Sasaki to intervene. He also mentioned that the Count had already decided on a punishment for Mark, effectively cutting off his support. Thane, being a man of loyalty and honor, planned to spend a significant amount to delay Mark's execution. Sasaki remembered that the Count had previously tried to marry into the family to seize Thane's inheritance. Thane described the Count as a cold but excellent politician who would do anything to achieve his goals, even leading to wars between their families. This time, he suspected the Count was targeting Mark to seize Thane's financial resources. Sasaki decided to see Thane himself to assess his character. They brought a gift on the way. Upon arriving, they narrowly missed another carriage. They then met the Count, who initially refused to release anyone. However, upon learning that Sasaki was the supplier and had been taken care of by Mark, he decided to let Sasaki supply his side, which would spare Mark. Thane found this outrageous, as Sasaki was only one of Mark's business partners. Sasaki asked for time to think, so the Count gave him a month during which he would not harm Mark. Frankie heard the news of Mark's impending execution. Sasaki had an idea and asked Thane for a favor. Pichen was ready to blow up the Count if necessary. Sasaki shook his head, considering this a last resort. He wanted to try peaceful means to save Mark first. When the manager heard the execution was postponed, he became anxious. However, the Count had no intention of letting Mark go easily. He wanted to get Sasaki first, as their faction supported the Crown Prince. Later, a maid brought something for Sasaki from Thane, and Sasaki tipped her. He then transported the goods to a neighboring country's Chamber of Commerce, made a deal with Joseph, the head there, and promised to bring twice the goods next time, hoping to settle in cash then. He also met Joseph's friend Modis, who worked at the central bank. Sasaki thought he looked familiar, and later realized he was the person from the carriage they had passed earlier. Sasaki found an excuse to strike up a conversation with Modis. Meanwhile, in the Earth world, Kurohige had been locked out after school and hadn't seen Sasaki return, but suddenly heard voices inside. Moving closer to listen, he realized Sasaki was talking to someone. Sasaki then rushed out, claiming he had forgotten something at the company. It seemed there was no one else inside, leaving Kurohige's attention on Pichen. Shortly after Sasaki left, he received a call from Shizuka, indicating there was yet another issue with the flow of time, as they had planned to meet at 19 Hall. It's already 10 p.m. now. Sasaki quickly took a taxi to pick up the goods. Thane and his eldest son finished their negotiations and returned to their mansion. Frankie visited Mark with the dagger, reassuring him that everything would be all right soon. Tomorrow is the day of the execution. The manager thought he had everything under control, but the Count, after reviewing the accounts, found that the manager had taken out a large loan to transfer the store and questioned if he could repay it. The Count then received a letter. Frankie anxiously waited for the Count to arrive. Not only did the Count come, but he also brought the manager and Mark. Sasaki said they needed to discuss the transaction details in the store. The Count stated he would release the person if the transaction was satisfactory. Otherwise, he would immediately take Mark for execution. The Count's true colors were fully shown, but he didn't expect Thane to bring Prince Adonis with him. Faced with Prince Adonis, the Count was at a disadvantage in terms of status. Afterwards, Frankie prepared some food, and the meal went smoothly without incidents. During the meal, Adonis seized the opportunity to discuss the key issue, urging the Count to release Mark, and stated that Thane and Sasaki were willing to offer compensation. Being a prince, the Count dared not show disrespect, and merely mentioned he had already discussed with Sasaki. If the exchange was appropriate, he could release Mark. However, Adonis suggested that releasing Mark now would benefit the Count. Sasaki also admitted that his products were very popular and powerful, only sold with Adonis's approval and to trusted individuals. Sasaki mentioned that the trusted person was Mark. Selling to the Count carelessly could be seen as disrespect to Adonis. For this reason, the Count was forced to agree to negotiate the compensation again. The manager became anxious, but the Count was not easily fooled and set a nearly impossible condition, demanding 1,000 gold coins to compensate for the supposed affront to his noble dignity. Adonis and Thane found this demand outrageous, questioning how a common merchant could hold such high value. However, in an era dominated by nobility, such reasoning was hard to refute. He hadn't expected Sasaki to actually agree to the condition, so he raised the demand further, stipulating that it must be fulfilled within this year. Surprisingly, Sasaki was able to provide 500 gold coins as an advance payment today and promised the remaining 500 within a week, asserting that Mark was worth the price. Despite his overwhelming abilities, Sasaki had to pay off corrupt nobles to save someone, which was somewhat humiliating. Moreover, Sasaki claimed he was doing this for the good of the kingdom. The Count did not understand why Sasaki, a foreigner, would act this way. Sasaki glanced at Peeps and mentioned that he was accompanied by someone who did not want to see their homeland destroyed. Now considered a half-noble, Sasaki's words finally moved the Count, reminding him of his noble obligations. Ultimately, the Count chose to release Mark unconditionally. This broke the manager, who immediately mentioned that other nobles from the Crown Prince's faction were involved in the plan, and the Count could not just tear up the agreement. Unexpectedly, Joseph, the chairman of the Republic's major trade association, arrived. Thane and Adonis showed him great respect. This was surprising, considering their noble and royal status, especially since they had just been promoting the supremacy of nobility. Later, Sasaki learned that the Republic's power far surpassed both the Empire and the Kingdom. Joseph controlled the largest trade association in another world and held a very high status in the Republic. The Count and the manager had intended to greet him, but were taken aback when Joseph mentioned that he had acquired the bonds because the manager had incurred a significant debt with the central bank while trying to transfer the store. Through a friend working at the bank, Joseph acquired the debt and planned to do Sasaki a favor by transferring it to a new trade association Sasaki had established in the Republic. Upon discovering Sasaki had formed a new trade association, Adonis and the others had complicated expressions. Seizing the opportunity, Joseph expressed his desire to meet Mark. Mark thought he was lucky to be rescued, but never imagined he would become the manager of the new trade association and meet the legendary chairman, Joseph. Sasaki had not expected the seemingly mild Joseph to be such a formidable figure. He had been preparing from the start, planning to involve Adonis because the kingdom greatly valued the noble class. He also learned that the Count, needing funds for the war, was in debt as the war had ended, but the funds were not yet circulating. Expecting the Count to propose a financial transaction to release Mark, Sasaki prepared a large amount of goods through Shizuka. Initially, Sasaki planned to acquire the Count's assets after completing the deal, but Joseph acted first, doing him a favor. If this approach had failed, Sasaki was prepared to use his ultimate weapon, Peeps, but fortunately, it was resolved without reaching that point. Sasaki had just returned to Earth when he received news that Shizuka had been attacked. He rushed to the scene as agreed to rescue her. Amidst a hail of bullets, Sasaki blocked them all with a barrier and also healed Shizuka's wounds. Shizuka revealed that the attackers were assassins sent by her former organization, intending to involve Sasaki in their plan. Just then, a long-haired man wearing glasses entered. Shizuka immediately abandoned the plan upon seeing him, stating they couldn't defeat him. The glasses man appeared to be a top figure in the organization, possessing the ability to turn delusions into reality. Even Shizuka, an executive, couldn't fully grasp his powers. Surprisingly, he could replicate Shizuka's clones. Shizuka's power allows her to absorb others' powers, making it difficult for even Sasaki and Peeps to defend against the continuous attacks from the clones. They decided to leave with Shizuka first. The glasses man recognized Peeps on Sasaki's shoulder, possibly as some sort of familiar. By then, Sasaki had already fled with Shizuka, reasoning it's better to escape than fight. The two reached a warehouse where Shizuka offered to help them set up bases abroad if they assisted her in infiltrating the psychic bureau. Peeps suggested using a curse to coerce Shizuka, but Sasaki reminded that it was Shizuka who attacked them first, leading to the use of the curse. However, their current deal was mutually beneficial, and Sasaki preferred to maintain a good relationship. He agreed to help Shizuka with some matters, provided there was no threat to their lives. Suddenly, the glasses man, using his delusional powers, found them. Sasaki realized that only Section Chief Akutsu knew of Shizuka's whereabouts, suggesting a possible insider leak. It was unclear whether their relationship was purely transactional or if they had known each other earlier. Akutsu might also be aiming for them to weaken each other through infighting. The glasses man attacked, but fortunately, Peeps blocked all the grenades. Impressed by his pet's reliability and ability to identify dangerous items online, Sasaki decided to reward P-chan with a new smartphone and a computer. They chatted, unconcerned, as Shizuka criticized their lack of crisis awareness. Meanwhile, P-chan took on the task of fighting the Glasses Man. During their confrontation, Sasaki noticed that the Glasses Man could materialize items from games. However, his flames were easily blocked by P-chan. P-chan's attacks were also defended against by the Glasses Man's extra rings. The Glasses Man then summoned a weapon capable of erasing existence, recognized by Shizuka from a popular game as a new weapon. The Glasses Man's powers were indeed formidable, and he managed to genuinely injure P-chan through multiple delusions. P-chan did not disappear. Instead, he healed his own wounds. Upon seeing this, the Glasses Man exclaimed, "What kind of battle is this?" and immediately conceded, stating there was no need to fight to the death for Shizuka. However, Sasaki stopped him and asked him to confirm Shizuka's formal withdrawal from the organization. The Glasses Man agreed to discuss this with Sasaki's superior. At this point, Sasaki learned that their relationship was merely based on mutual interests. Sasaki also did not want to fall out with the Glasses Man, especially since he needed to conceal his own powers within the Bureau, and found Shizuka's abilities quite useful. After some thought, the Glasses Man agreed not to disclose his information. Shizuka thanked Sasaki and promised to fully support them in the future and help establish new bases. With a new source, Sasaki immediately ordered 300 tons of sugar. At that moment, Sasaki received a call from Hoshizaki, informing him that the magical girl Agnes had attacked headquarters, and a helicopter was dispatched to pick them up. The Bureau claimed an explosion had occurred and evacuated the nearby residents. Sasaki and Shizuka arrived at the scene, while P-chan stayed home. This time, 2 additional magical girls had joined Agnes. Remembering Agnes's hatred for psychics, Sasaki didn't want her to become a terrorist. Sasaki and Shizuka waited outside the scene, thinking if P-chan were there, he could teleport Shizuka directly to resolve the situation with the 2 magical girls instantly. However, Sasaki felt it would be troublesome if P-chan's presence was discovered by the Bureau, so he planned to resolve the situation himself. At that moment, the magical girls and psychics began fighting. The psychics' attacks were blocked by shields, and the magical girls' high damage output was impenetrable. Through surveillance cameras, Akutsu saw Sasaki and Shizuka sneaking into the scene. Seeing that the shield was unbreakable, Sasaki, observing Agnes's furious expression, decided to use water. Instead of attacking from the outside, he planned to get water inside the shield. Shizuka thought it was feasible, but Sasaki hoped she would not kill Agnes, preferring to stun her so the other magical girl would be forced to use defense and retreat. Sasaki let Shizuka take action to boost her presence within the Bureau. He signaled the camera, and Akutsu directed Hoshizaki to attack, distracting the opposition. Meanwhile, Sasaki used magic to release water inside the barrier, successfully flooding it. The magical girl was forced to open the defense to release the water, but Sasaki then blocked the opening with ice. Shizuka, working from a blind spot, broke the ice, stunning Agnes inside the barrier. Before fainting, Agnes saw Sasaki and her partner, deeply concerned for Agnes, launched an attack, which Sasaki blocked. After learning that Agnes would only be unconscious for a few days, her partner memorized Shizuka's face, vowing not to let them go next time, and then retreated with Agnes. Shizuka was held at gunpoint by everyone. Hoshizaki asked Sasaki if the water flow was also his special ability. Sasaki nodded, and then Akutsu stepped forward. Sasaki asked why the magical girl attacked this place. Akutsu explained that the magical girl had previous contact with Bureau members and that investigations were ongoing. However, given the situation, he anticipated she would attack again. Shizuka asked Akutsu if he planned to increase staff. Akutsu said he would formally hire Shizuka, but the official notice would take a few days. In the meantime, Sasaki would continue to look after her. Reluctantly, Sasaki accepted the responsibility. Sasaki explained the water flow as a skill he developed from repeated use of his abilities, a makeshift explanation. Both knew of each other's secret dealings, such as communications with top enemy organization members, but had to pretend ignorance and even write reports about it. Akutsu told Sasaki that he expected Shizuka to remain under his guidance. Sasaki agreed, suggesting that sharing information with Shizuka would improve their cooperation. Akutsu agreed. After work, Sasaki complained about nearly becoming a triple agent. Without Pichan's help, Sasaki had to practice magic on his own. At his home entrance, he met Kurohige, who looked pitiful. Sasaki handed him a drink. Kurohige mentioned hearing young voices inside Sasaki's room. Sasaki, having friends over recently, denied they were female, noting Pichan's androgynous voice. He then gave Kurohige some bread, feeling he had disturbed his neighbor. Sasaki considered moving to a better place, providing a room for Pichan. He cooked sukiyaki at home, reminiscing about his first meeting with Pichan. It hadn't been long, but his life felt significantly changed, almost as if he was living his own wandering life. Meanwhile, Pichan researched the flow rate between the two worlds, finding it shifting from 130 to likely 1.1 in 6 months. Sasaki planned more investigations into the other world. Hearing wall knocking, he turned on the TV to cover their conversation, only to see news about lizard people. Then, Akutsu called, signaling Sasaki's peaceful life was fading. Unbeknownst to Sasaki, the noise wasn't from Kurohige but from a boy claiming to be a demon, smashing someone against the wall and asking Kurohige to contract with him to fight angels, as their world was nearly torn apart.